Hello, I am your teacher, Mr. Pacitti, and this is my classroom here in Washington, D.C. So put away your mobile phones, put away your rioting for hand sanitizer and toilet paper, you pissing nutters. It's time to concentrate, it's time to study. This is Raw, and this is Graded. We are kicking things off with the man, the Raw Women's Champion, Shayna's bitch in a month, Becky Lynch. We get a quick video recap of Shayna's dominant win in the Elimination Chamber, that historic win, and Becky Lynch puts her over as a credible threat, but also says that she is a world-class scumbag. She goes on to call Shayna a black hole of charisma, talks about the time at last year's WrestleMania where Shayna refused to shake her hand, pa-pow, pa-pow, and says that this year's WrestleMania, she is going to smash her ruddy face in. Mic drop. And that was pretty much it. This gets a B. I was expecting Shayna to do something, whether it was come out and attack Becky Lynch or do a bit of verbal sparring with her, but I guess at the same time, her performance at the Elimination Chamber probably did all the talking required. A nice performance by Becky Lynch here, oozing that charisma that she says that Shayna Baszler doesn't have, but I can't help but feel that we've seen this sort of Becky Lynch style promo like 10, 20 times before, so it's starting to lose a little bit of impact for me, but hey, maybe that is just me. Next up, it's time for Rey Mysterio versus Angel Garza, a month on from when Angel Garza drove Little Rey's pea-sized head into the exposed concrete. A nice match to open the show from two guys who just have heaps of chemistry, and it got me thinking, hey, I'd really like to see this on a grander stage because those two could do something really, really special. I'm not saying WrestleMania because I think the card is filling up already there and I'm not really sure there's room for it, but hey, maybe a month down the line at Money in the Bank or something like that, a passing of the torch match. Not literally, but you can imagine how big it would feel for Rey Mysterio to put over Angel Garza clean. I'd like to see that. Numerous times during the match in this one, we see each man have their opponents scouted. So at one point, Rey Mysterio, he's upside down on the corner post doing a little headstand because he's just a lot of fun, isn't he? And then bang, super kick. And then later on, Angel Garza, the cheeky sausage, goes for a 619, but Rey manages to escape and bang, a big old kick to the face for Angel Garza. Later on, Angel gets hung up on the ropes. Rey goes for a 619 of his own, but Angel dodges, but eventually he gets nailed with a 619 anyway. Rey Mysterio picking up the win and a B in the process. A fun match here, but I will say, and I think this is a good thing, that it felt like both guys were holding back a little bit. And that's good because obviously it's on TV, but also it fills me with hope that maybe WWE want to see this on a grander stage too. Once again, I'm not suggesting WrestleMania necessarily. However, there's an easy way to get this all the way down to Money in the Bank. Like just before WrestleMania, backstage, Angel Garza could do it again. He could grab Rey Mysterio, DDT onto the concrete backstage. Rey Mysterio misses WrestleMania. Super intense, super personal feud. Great match for Money in the Bank. Angel Garza has all the potential in the world, and I really hope WWE see that. Next up, it's time for one of those slickly produced WWE video packages. This one showing Rhea Ripley turning up at the Raymond James Stadium, which is where WrestleMania is being held in Tampa. She walks around, she's bloody astounded by the size of the thing. Who would have thunk it, eh? And she talks about how when she first popped up in NXT, there were all these comparisons, people comparing Rhea to Charlotte, and she says basically at WrestleMania, she's going to beat Charlotte because to prove that she is the man, in Ric Flair's words, or Becky Lynch's, she's gonna beat the best. That's what she's saying here. I love this little video package. It only lasted like 90 seconds or something, but I thought it did a great job in, first of all, introducing people to Rhea Ripley, if they're still not familiar with her, because I guess a lot of people who are watching Raw might not know her from her time in NXT or whatever, but also it really humanized her. She came across as so sincere. It felt like this is the biggest thing in the world to her, which it absolutely should be because it's the biggest match of her career. It made the NXT title feel like a very big deal too. But we are not done yet. Cut back to ringside. Out comes the Queen. Woo, Charlotte Flair is here. And she sort of sarcastically mocks Rhea Ripley, saying, oh man, that video package got me so fired up. And then she talks about the comparisons between Rhea and Charlotte, saying that those comparisons are completely unfair because Rhea will never be like Charlotte, and more importantly, Rhea will never beat Charlotte. She says, Rhea, you may be the shiny new toy, but the only reason that Charlotte is challenging for the NXT title is to put Rhea Ripley in her place. She is going to humble her. Shades of the Iron Sheik. Put her in the camel clutch, come on. Didn't really like that line so much because I thought Rhea did a great job of making the NXT title feel really, really important. And then Charlotte's going like, oh, I'm only doing this to humble you. It's not really about the title for me. So I don't know why they went with that. Anyway, Rhea Ripley is here. She comes out to a pretty decent pop. She comes to the ring, but before she can get a pissing word in edgeways, Charlotte just starts running her down and going, hey, Rhea, you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be in my ring. You are excused. But Rhea, she does not want to be excused. No, no, no. So she just knocks Charlotte down with a single right hook to the jaw. Charlotte, she's not like knocked out or anything, but she's on the ground going like, she can't quite believe what happened. She looks on at Rhea Ripley standing tall in a state of disbelief. This gets a B+. Yes, it's another B. There's going to be a lot of B's in this video once again. Did you know, by the way, there's a type of bee that produces milk? The booby. Yeah, I thought this was pretty neat. The video package was the best part of it for me. I thought that was superbly produced. And Charlotte getting knocked to the floor, maybe introducing the idea that she's got a little bit more than she bargained for. It made Rhea seem pretty damn badass. So I'm looking forward to this match at Mania, but I hope that over the coming weeks, it's very much about Charlotte wanting to get her hands on the title. It's not just about her wanting to teach the NXT woman a lesson. This is about her wanting a prestigious title around her waist or on her shoulder, or sometimes around like that. Wherever, really. So yeah, nothing groundbreaking, but given the fact that this only lasted like 6 or 7 minutes, I think it did a very good job of hyping the match at WrestleMania. And speaking of WrestleMania matches we want to see, next up, it's time for Bobby Lashley versus Zack Ryder. What? Bobby Lashley squashes Zack Ryder in about 30 seconds. D-. Bobby Lashley squashing Zack Ryder does nothing for Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley squashing Zack Ryder does nothing for Zack Ryder. It just buries him further as a guy that we shouldn't care about. Bobby Lashley squashing Zack Ryder in the run-up to WrestleMania, of all times, it doesn't introduce or further any storylines. Pointless crap. Let's move on. We're going backstage to that creepy environment in which Aleister Black sometimes sits because he's all spooky and that. He's going to do one of his promos, but knock, knock, knock. In walks Seth Rollins and his little mate Murphy. A little bit earlier in the night, we had seen that Seth Rollins, Murphy, AOP, they'd all trashed Kevin Owens as Kevin was arriving at the arena. But Seth Rollins is here to talk business. So he says to Aleister, Aleister, I want you on my side. And then offers him a funky WWEshop.com t-shirt with Rollins' face on it. He wants him as part of the group. But what does Aleister say? No. Seth says, well, okay, you're either with me or you're against me. Aleister Black goes, that's fine, I'll be against you. So a match is set up for later in the evening. It's going to be tonight's main event. Sort of. Aleister Black versus Seth Rollins. We will get there in a bit. Next up, it's time for Drew McIntyre versus Erick Rowan. Okay. Before the bell rings, Drew McIntyre sort of starts eyeing up the spider cage on the outside of the ring, and Erick gets a bit worried by this, so he starts laying in the blows. This doesn't really last very long at all. He goes for the Iron Claw at one point, but Drew manages to wriggle out, and then they start scrapping on the outside, and almost immediately, Drew getting the upper hand. And then when they're on the outside, Drew manages to incapacitate Erick Rowan, and then he walks over, grabs the steel steps, lifts them up. They weigh 10 billion pounds. What are you doing? And he drops them hard on the spider cage, crushing it. Erick Rowan is not a happy boy. He goes bozo, tries to attack Drew McIntyre. That doesn't last long at all either. Future Shock DDT, 1, 2, 3, Claymore, and then 1, 2, 3, wins the match. Listen, I was going to give this a C because Drew McIntyre beating Erick Rowan doesn't really do anything for Drew. It doesn't mean that much. Despite months of squash matches, Erick Rowan beating up countless jobbers, he still doesn't really feel like a proper threat, does he? However, I'm going to up that to a B. Let me tell you why. The spider thing is stupid. I know that. You know that, and it appears now that WWE know that. And if they're going to write this stupid storyline off, at least let's do it in a fairly entertaining way. WWE, they could have just not used Erick Rowan on TV for a bit, not mentioned the stupid spider bollocks ever again, but at least if they do it this way, they got something that was mildly interesting out of it, and the crowd seemed behind it. The crowd were really cheering Drew when he dropped the steps on the spider cage. I'm clutching at straws here, aren't I? It wasn't that great, but I smiled when he crushed the robot spider. I'm a pathetic man. That said, I will also mention WWE should have never done the spider bollocks to begin with, because nobody's going to get behind that. It's just bad. It was just bad creative. And they shouldn't have introduced that cage not knowing what was eventually going to be in there. You're just backing yourselves into a corner, because then the pressure's on. And we saw weeks and weeks and months and what felt like years of build, and we got that crappy backstage segment with No Way Jose, and that's it. So don't do that again. The WWE have a habit of doing that. They introduce stuff and just think, hey, we'll figure that out later. Cut it out. Next up, we get a quick promo from Asuka and Kairi Sane. Asuka says after the Elimination Chamber, she wants to bloody beat someone. But not on her own, with Kairi. Remember her? That's her tag team partner. It's tag team action, holla holla, player, Asuka and Kairi Sane, the Kabuki Warriors, taking on Natalya and Liv Morgan. The match gets going, but it's not long before Ruby Riott makes her way down the ramp, and she just stands there, bottom of the ramp, watching on as the action plays out. What could happen here? We'll get there in a minute. There's not really that much to say about the match itself. A lot of this was spent with Asuka and Kairi just tagging in and out, frequent tags, isolating Natalya's arm, you know, the one that Shayna knackered at Elimination Chamber. All sensible stuff, in fairness. So as this onslaught continues, Sarah Logan walks out. She stands at the bottom of the ramp as well, and she's there for like a minute or so. Goodness me, are we getting a Riot Squad reunion? Are we balls? After a minute or so, her and Ruby look at each other, and then they start going at it, and Liv Morgan doesn't know what to do with herself. So she does what any sensible wrestler would do, goes up top, dives on both women, taking herself out of the match in the process. What a crap tag team partner. Natalya now on her own, she locks in a sharpshooter on Kairi Sane, but Kairi Sane isn't the legal woman, so Asuka rolls in, kicks Natalya in the head, 1, 2, 3, and the Kabuki Warriors win the tag match. So I wasn't that keen on this, but there's one thing about it that I did like, because these things are nuanced, you see. So I like the idea of a former Riot Squad member triple threat match. I think that could be a lot of fun. I think Ruby probably comes out on top. That said, I really like Sarah. I like all three of those, but Ruby should probably... Anyway, whatever. What I didn't like about this is that, once again, the tag team titles, even though this wasn't a title match, they couldn't feel like more of an afterthought. In fact, women's tag team wrestling as a whole in WWE couldn't feel like more of an afterthought. So you've dragged Asuka away from the tag team scene to get beaten in singles competition numerous times, and then when you finally do get a women's tag team match, it's once again all about singles competition, which is happening on the outside of the ring. It's just baffling. I'm going to give this a generous C, because the match itself was alright, but listen WWE, and I know you're watching, Vince, don't introduce belts if you're not going to use them, because then they just become meaningless props, and that has happened in like a year with the women's tag team titles, and that's such a shame. Next up, it's AJ Styles and his bald buddies, and he is super pissed after Elimination Chamber. He is here to shoot. Sort of. He is here, of course, to call out The Undertaker for a match at WrestleMania. He talks about Roman Reigns beating Taker at Mania, and then Taker taking off his jacket, taking off his hat, leaving them in the ring, going up the ramp and doing that, and then not even pissing retiring. What are you playing at, Mark? And he does say Mark. He's using Taker's real name, and it's not just Taker he's talking about. It's not just Mark. He's also going to talk about Michelle McCool, who is The Undertaker's real life wife. They're married. What? I'm paraphrasing a little bit, obviously, but AJ starts talking about the relationship between Mark and Michelle, and the only reason that Undertaker keeps on going is because of Michelle, and she is going to run him into the bloody ground. And AJ Styles, he's going to help. In fact, he is going to make The Undertaker die in the ring at WrestleMania. It sounds silly when I say it, but it was super impactful when AJ Styles was saying it. So yeah, he's just going, Taker, you're a broken down old man, and I'm going to kill you at WrestleMania. You can't actually do that because The Undertaker is an undead zombie. That's how it works. Haven't you been watching the product? And I love this. I thought this was really fantastic. This gets an A from me. Styles, this was one of my favorite AJ promos in the last few years. I thought he was really on form last night. And after Taker has had AJ's number twice in 2 weeks, I actually think the introduction of the real personal element of this feud was necessary, because in kayfabe, Taker maybe doesn't really need a match with AJ Styles because he's already knackered him twice in 2 weeks. So now bringing his wife into it, That makes sense. Essentially, the blending of kayfabe and reality was done very, very carefully last night, but it was also done very, very effectively. We've got like 4 weeks until WrestleMania, and I think this is going to build to something really nice. I will say I don't rate AJ's chances, because now the basis of this story is Undertaker proving that he's not old, he's not washed up. Well, he's definitely old. He's definitely old. He's not washed up. So I think he's going to batter AJ Styles. Don't be expecting a 15-minute classic. Don't be expecting the AJ Styles Undertaker match that we wanted to see 10, 15 years ago. I think it might be chokeslam, tombstone, and that's your lot, just to prove that Undertaker, hey, he's not washed up. He's still a draw. Go and watch him in Saudi Arabia. Lots of money. Next up, it's time for Riddick Moss, the 24/7 champion, to take on Cedric Alexander in a proper match. Yeah! Except it wasn't really a proper match because it lasted like a minute and a half. Basically, they go at it for like 20 seconds or so. Moss catches him, throws him to the outside of the ring with a fall-away slam, gets him back in the ring, hits the modified neckbreaker, and that's it. He's still the 24/7 champion. So yeah, I'm not necessarily anti-proper 24/7 title matches, even if they do take away some of the spontaneity and fun. But also, is Riddick Moss really the man to be elevating that title and making it feel like a bigger deal? I'll answer that for you. No, he's not. Because who the hell is Riddick Moss to most casual viewers? They've done such a poor job of introducing who Riddick Moss is. Like he was Mojo Rawley's offensive lineman or whatever they called him. That lasted 3 weeks. And that was it. Who the hell is Riddick Moss? Next up, MVP is in the ring. Welcome back again, MVP. He is here to talk about his business plan. MVP says that he wants to build a stable, not literally. As far as I know, MVP has no interest in any element of the equestrian lifestyle. I'll make that clear. He wants to build a wrestling stable. It's a name for a group of people together in one team. I don't know why I'm doing that. MVP wants to build a stable, and the man that he wants at the forefront of that stable is Edge. It's a nay from me. So we cut backstage and Edge is here. He's in the arena, he's just arrived, and he is angry. He comes straight down to the ring. There's no pose, there's no fireworks, none of that. He wants Randy Orton. So he snatches the mic away from Montel and goes, "Randy!" like that. He wants Randy right here, right now. MVP starts blabbing on, going, "Edge, you're focused on the wrong things. I've just offered you a position in my stable." Edge is not happy. He's done. He's done with MVP. Bang, spear. But before Edge can even stand up after the spear, in comes Randy Orton and he starts laying in the blows. But Edge manages to get the better of him and lays Orton out with an RKO of his own. Yeah, go on, Edge. He gets outside the ring and he grabs some chairs. It looks like Orton is going to eat a concerto, but no, he's not, because Orton, the slippery little snake, literally slides out of there. He's gone. So Edge is like, oh, okay, well, MVP's here. So yeah, all right. So he RKOs MVP on the chair and then concerto. Poor MVP. The intensity was off the charts for this. It was so good. Just sensational. This was more than deserving of an A. And I don't want to sit here and be all like, modern day superstars aren't as good. But there's nobody that can make you feel it like Edge can feel it. The intensity last night was incredible. Just truly, truly incredible. Edge's facials when he was screaming "Randy" like that, you just believed it. It was so bloody good. And props to WWE for limiting the physicality between Edge and Orton to just that RKO, because now I want to see Randy get destroyed by Edge. I want to see Edge get his hands on Randy Orton more than ever. Before I move on, I saw some people saying, oh, well, MVP didn't really deserve that, and Orton, he doesn't like MVP that much. They're not like best buddies or anything like that. So why did Edge do that? It wasn't about MVP. MVP there, when he was laid out, he was the placeholder for Orton. Edge, with the eye contact as he drove that chair into the back of MVP's head, he was imagining Orton the whole time. It wasn't about Edge getting one over on MVP because MVP was being a bit of a bellend. This was about sending a message to Orton, and it was spectacularly done. And now it's time for the main event. Seth Rollins versus Aleister Black, for a little bit anyway. A decent match here, while it lasted. Both men exchanging blows, exchanging holds. Pretty early on, they go for their finishers, like Seth goes for the stomp, Aleister dodges, and then Aleister Black goes for Black Mass, Seth dodges, and then Aleister Black does the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. He does that flip and then sits down cross-legged like he's in assembly. Breathtaking. I'm kidding, obviously, I do really like that. It's really cool, it's really fun. Anyway, there's not really that much to say here. The two go at it for a little bit longer, it's all good stuff. It looks like Aleister Black might have the thing won, so he pins Seth Rollins, but Buddy Murphy rolls in, breaks up the pinfall attempt, causing a DQ, and that's Raw. Except of course it's bloody not, because holla holla, player intensifies. It's time to set up a tag match, obviously. And how did we get to the tag match this week? Let me tell you. So, Murphy and Seth start beating down on Aleister Black, and then Seth's like, come on, quick guys, after like 30 seconds, because AOP are just tremendously lazy, apparently. AOP run down, and they're all absolutely destroying Aleister Black. They take him out of action, and then after another 30 seconds or so, outrun the Viking Raiders, and the odds are almost even, and then outrun the Street Profits, and the odds are very much even, and we've got ourselves an 8-man tag, because of course we do. Seth and his heelish buddies versus the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits, and that's your main event. And you know what? A pretty fun match and everything. I'm not going to complain about it too much. They were certainly given time. It lasted like 15 minutes, almost too much time, in fact. But I do feel like the card placement was all wrong last night. Like, we'd just seen this fantastic, impactful segment with Edge and Orton and MVP, who is probably still laid out on that canvas. And then we get this thrown together 8-man tag, just like every other week. I'd normally forgive it, but we're in the build to WrestleMania. We're 4 weeks away or whatever from WrestleMania. This didn't really work for me. Regardless, still enjoyable. I bloody love seeing the big boys go at it, and we got plenty of that last night with the Viking Raiders and the AOP clashing. And then the heels manage to isolate Rowe. They start beating him down until Rowe finally manages to make the hot tag, and in comes the big man, Montez Ford. Felt a bit backwards. Back from the break, and Montez is now taking the beat down. That's more like it. In the closing stages, it all breaks down. Everyone's on the outside of the ring. Montez goes and leaps over the top rope, takes everybody out, but when he comes back in the ring, curb stomp. 1, 2, 3. Seth Rollins picking up the win for the naughty boys. And then as Seth is celebrating, who pops up? Well, it's pretty obvious who pops up. Kevin Owens comes in and he goes for Seth Rollins, but the numbers game is too much, and Kevin Owens eats a curb stomp himself to close the show. Thanks for watching. So yeah, I'll give this a C+. Solid match and everything. It just didn't feel like a show closer, especially, as I say, after we'd seen the Edge and Orton stuff, which is really what we were all tuning in for. That was the main event to me, and I know they did the Edge chasing Orton thing, and Orton managed to escape the arena and everything, but I still think that could have worked. Just Edge running up the ramp and the show closing in chaos as Orton in a car screeches away. I think that would have been a lot better than the predictable Owens coming back. He got leveled and whatever. I don't know, it just felt, swap those two around, this would have been a bit of a better Raw. Overall, a pretty good episode of Raw. It's certainly starting to feel like WrestleMania season. It's one of those episodes of Raw where the good stuff was really good, specifically the Edge and Randy Orton and MVP, hello down there, segment. I thought that was tremendous. And even the bad stuff, it wasn't tragically bad. Some of it was just a little bit pointless. Hello, Bobby Lashley. I'm going to give this episode of Raw a B because, of course, I bloody am. And one thing that we're not talking about nearly enough is that poor spider. A spider was murdered on last night's Raw. I told this story last week on the podcast, but I used to let spiders live in my hair because I felt sorry for them when I was a little boy, this is. So my mum would have to check my hair when I came in from school to check if there were any spiders living in there, because I felt bad that they didn't have proper houses. This one had a proper house. He had a little wicker basket. And that horrible man, that horrible Drew McIntyre, ruined that house. So I'm going to let that spider live in my... I'm rambling on here. I'm rambling on. How do you cut an ocean in half? With a seesaw.